There's good news and bad news today, guys, and it's the same thing. The good news is that today I do not have my entire bankroll nor my entire net worth on the table. That's probably a good thing. The bad news is that I don't have my net worth on the table, so is that a little bit less exciting? This video is probably going to perform pretty poorly by YouTube standards. YouTube, what's going to happen is they're going to tell me that this video is performing like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of the last 10 videos that I posted because it's a Pot Limit Omaha video. So automatically, I just lost like 30% of the audience who was going to watch this video. But here's the drill, guys. I'm sort of the mind that you should just be doing whatever it is that you want to do out there. If you guys want to make a video about the cactus in your backyard, you should do that. For me today, that cactus in my backyard is Pot Limit Omaha 2550 at the Lodge, Austin, Texas.
I've actually been playing way more hands of PLO than I have No Limit Hold'em lately, so I'm pretty excited about today's game. The thing is, when you step into this live stream studio at the Lodge, you are always going to be in for a roller coaster ride. So when you buy in for thousands of dollars, you don't know which side the variance coin is going to land on. You might get your ass handed to you, or the gods might be smiling upon you. You're just gonna have to get in there and get in the mix and hope for good things to happen. So buying in for $3,000 today, fingers crossed, let's go.
Hand number one off of the deck sees Trey coming in for the raise off of the button position, bumps it up to $150, folds around to us, King Jack 5-4, one suit. Not a very good hand, really disconnected here, but I'm prepared to play a lot of hands today. We're closing the action, so I toss in the call. Heads up to King 9-3 Rainbow, that's top pair plus a couple of backdoors. So when I check it and Trey puts out a C bet, $250, we got no choice, we call. Turns to 8 of clubs, second club, we don't have any clubs, so after I check it, if Trey bets, I'm done with it, but Trey checks it back. That gives us a free look at the river card, and that river card's an offsuit 5. That 5 gives us kings and 5s. There is a straight available. We don't have any blockers to that, but I'm going to go for some value with my kings up. I put out a small wager of $175 here, trying to get called by one pair. Trey thinks about it for a little bit, thinks the price is a very fair one, and he maybe annoyedly tosses in the call. We roll it over, and kings up is good to drag in pot number one off of the deck. Hand number 8. $50 straddle is on. Rolex Mike coming in for the raise this time up to $150 off of the button spot. We look down at 9886. Very defendable. In the straddle spot, I make the call. Heads up to King 9-8 monotone. Good news, bad news. Flop a set here, but 3 hearts on board. We don't have any of those. And to make matters worse, we're also blocking one of our full house outs, holding a 9. Make a standard check over to the initial raiser, and Rolex Mike checks it back. We get a free look at the turn card, which is a total brick offsuit deuce. Still checking it over to Rolex Mike here, since I think he can probably check back on the flop with some medium to small flushes. I think if I have pocket kings here for top set, seems like a reasonable hand to put out a wager with, getting value from 2 pairs and worse sets. But with the other sets, I just check it over to him, and Rolex Mike does put out a bet here on the turn. Fires out for $150. Very fair price. We got a set. We can make a full house. Maybe we got the best hand. I make the call. River's an offsuit 7, puts potential straights out there now. I check it once again, and Mike is not done betting, this time $500. We don't have any blockers to the flush. As mentioned, I think he can put out some delayed C-bets with flushes. Don't want to get too sticky here, just gonna go ahead and toss my set into the muck. And as we can see, Rolex Mike had himself not only a flush, but he had himself a nut flush. Ace, queen of hearts, sets the trap on the flop. Making a boat would have been nice, no such luck. Hand number 9 here, $50 straddle on again. Action folds around to the T1000. Part-time stand-up comedian, part-time Terminator. He goes ahead and bumps this up to $200 out of the small blind. Kenny makes the fold, and we look down at double-suited 10s, 10, 10, 9 deuce. We got position versus the T1000. Let's chuck in the call, and the player on my left gets out of the way. So heads up versus a Lodge stream regular here to a flop that comes down 6-5-3 all spades. That gives us a flush. We're not super proud of it, 10 high, but a flush nonetheless. JC fires out here for $100. Extremely fair price. Have to make this call. Turn doesn't change too much. 7-9 gets there. That's about it. JC not done firing here. He fires out for $275 on the turn. Folding here would be giving him way too much credit. He's very capable. He can turn some high single spade holdings into bluffs. We're going nowhere still. I go ahead and make the call. River's very interesting. It's an offsuit ace. And now the T1000 slows it down with a check. Definitely an interesting spot here. You got to think if he had some of the large flushes, the nut flush, or maybe the second nut flush, he would still go for value, at least a lot of the time. He could be going for the check raise here, but I think what might also be happening here is when he has a bluff, he makes an improved hand on this river card, which increases his showdown value. If that's true, and he doesn't have a flush, it seems like his hand class isn't going to be able to pay off a large bet. It's pretty tempting to just check back here with a 10 high flush, facing wagers on previous streets. But I think I want to try and squeeze out some value versus those hands that improve down the river. Ace is up, maybe top set here. I'm going to go ahead and try to get some value here versus JC. I fire out for $250.
He's going to fire out a little small bet of looks like 250. Little quarter-size pot bet.
I had a plan.
He did have a plan.
Then you made a pair of aces on the river or something.
Well, no, it's that I know it's too early and the pot's too small to like. It's not gonna work. You know?
You don't know. It can
work. It's not working. It's unfortunate.
The plan is not working there.
Ace of spades, give the spades, put your cards back down.
The T1000 shows the good discipline, doesn't want to get milked for the $250, tosses his top set into the muck. Definitely an interesting and fun hand where both of us seem to know exactly where the other player was at. Only hand number 11 of the show here. As you can see, things happen frequently and quickly in Pot Limit Omaha. $50 straddle is on again, as is the theme, as will be throughout the video. Esther limps it in the hijack, and T1000 pounces on that out of the cutoff spot, bumping it up to $200. Kenny makes the fold on the button. Over to us, looking down at a perfect rundown. Queen, Jack, 10, 9. Double suited would be better than single suited. Queen would be better than the jack, but good enough, I say. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet this one. Raise it up out of the small blind up to $725. Esther, she's seen enough shenanigans. She's going to go ahead, stick the rest of her money in there. She's all in for $945. T1000 wants to know how much that is, because if it's enough to reopen the betting once it gets back to me, then he's going to get shut out of this pot, because I'm going to go ahead and 5-bet this thing. But it's not enough money. Esther's got $950. The betting will not be reopened once it's back over to me. That allows T1000 to go ahead and make this call. Three of us heading to a flop with about $3,000 in the middle, and it comes down King 9-4 Rainbow. Not too bad. That's a pair plus a wrap. Any queen, jack, or 10 will give us the nut straight. There's also a heart on board. We got backdoor hearts working for us as well. We're in the small blind. We're first to act here. We got about $2,500 or $2,600 in our stack. Not too much decision here. We're just going to go ahead and rip this in. Even though there's a dry side pot at this point, if we could push T1000 out of there, anytime you can fold someone's equity out of the hand, and in Pot Limit Omaha, there's a decent chance people always have equity with all these cards. Anytime you can do that, that's a pretty good result. We got less than a pot size bet here, and I decide to send it in. I say we just go ahead and reveal the cards, and we ride along with T1000 as he decides what he wants to do here with another perfect rundown, the 7-6-5-4 double suited variety.
T1000 trying to figure out if he could go runner here in any possible world and get there. He's only got a pair of fours.
Would you shove a set? I'm just dead if you have a set. Absolutely dead. Very live if you have aces, though, which seems likely. Very light. This is very light. There's
Wow, this would be extremely light call here.
28.50.
Wow.
29.50.
Hi-ya. Stitch fan, I will explain my interpretation of a wrap after this hand.
It's so hard to fold. Fuck it.
He did. He did.
He makes the call here. Looking for runner.
Oh, yeah, get a real hand. Below an 8, please.
This is fun.
Clubs.
This is a fun one. This is a fun one.
Clubs. 3 of clubs is fair.
I mean, JC's still stone dead, but
JC in big time trouble here.
I think a 3 on the turn.
It's not like the worst thing for you to say.
A 3 on the turn would be the best sweat card.
Once or twice.
Nice queen deuce is fair.
Whatever you guys want. Let's do it 2 times.
2 times.
All right.
Makes him a
They're going to run 2 turns, 2 rivers.
No, I think.
Out 7.
Just
There's some cards.
Just middle of the deck. Just middle of the road. There it is.
There's a 5, so 2 pair now
Hold.
for T1000.
Not hold. No hold.
And Andrew gets there. He's got the straight
Brutal.
using his 10 queen.
The torture.
That's a great turn.
7.
Another great turn.
Great turn for T1000 now with the open ender.
Deuce through 8. No, 7. Oh, yeah.
There's the queen, and Andrew gets there again, and that's why wraps are so powerful.
A couple of turn cards that were good for T1000's hand. Turns 2 pair, but then we get there with a straight on the first hand, and then he turns a wrap on the second board. But once again, we get there with a nut straight on the second river card. Running good at the lodge so far. Scooping a 3-way pot on 2 boards. Life is good. Next hand, number 13 off of the deck, we see Kenny coming in for the raise up to $150 out of the hijack spot. We look down at ace, jack, 10, 6. We got some nut clubs here. Good connectivity up top. The 6 is a little disconnected. It doesn't really quite connect with the top. I mean, 10, 6 can make a straight, but that's pretty tough. It doesn't connect with the ace on the low end, so not super ideal, but certainly good enough to call. Action around to Trey in the small blind, and he decides he's got a hand that is certainly good enough to 3-bet with. He goes ahead, bumps this up to $600 out of the small blind. Over to the T1000 in the low jack spot, gives it a look back and forth, surveys the situation, does Terminator things, and then he goes ahead and makes the cold call. Kenny going nowhere, he makes the call as well, and we are closing the action here. We got nut clubs and aforementioned connectivity. Let's chuck it in. So 4 ways going to a flop, $2,400 in the middle. And the flop comes down ace, 8, 6, rainbow. Top and bottom pairs for us, plus some backdoors. Trey does not put out the C-bet here. He goes ahead and checks it. Action on T1000, who does not check it. He's going to go ahead and wager the maximum. He goes ahead and pots it. Kenny gets out of the way, and it's over to us with a little bit of a decision here. T1000 is not just going to be airball blasting away in here with nothing. It's a little bit unlikely that he's doing this with a worst 2 pairs, bottom 2 pair, and a 4-way pot. Not sure if he would just blast away with that. So chances are he's either got a hand that is better than ours, maybe the same hand, or a really good draw. Don't love the situation, but 2 pairs, 2 pair, and we've got those backdoor draws as a backup plan. So I go ahead and pot it, stick the money in there. Trey gets out of the way, and T1000 is committed. He goes ahead and calls it off, and it is not great news because T1000 has the ace, queen, queen, 8 for top 2 pair. Those 2 pairs are better than my 2 pairs, and we're going to need to find some improvement here. Running it twice and looking for some help. On turn number 1, we see the king of clubs, which is a very welcome sight. Picking up that backdoor flush draw plus a queen would give us a straight. And the river is very disappointing because it's a 4 diamonds total brick. Not only do we whiff, but we lose some equity with that king of clubs. Heading to that second board, we find another helpful card, the 9 of spades on the turn, giving us an open ender now. And we head to the river, hoping to not get scooped, looking for some help of some sort here, and we find the 10 of clubs on the river, which gives us a better 2 pair than T1000's aces and 8s. That gives us aces and 10s, which is very good news because we get to chop this pot, and not only that, but this was a 3-bet pot pre-flop going 4 ways, which means those other 2 guys put $600 each pre-flop, and we get to chop up their money. So definitely a good turn of events there, in danger of getting scooped until that last card, and we end up with a small profit. Hand number 13, I got the $100 straddle on in this hand. We see MSK coming in for a raise up to $250 first to act in the cutoff spot. No participants until it folds all the way around to me, looking down at King Jack 10-5. It's not a full pot size raise. We're getting a pretty good price here. Not the ugliest hand I've ever seen, so I make the call.
Heads up to a pretty good flop here. Jack, Jack 4, 2 clubs, 1 spade. That's trips for us. Don't think I'm going to find too many leads on paired boards. Check it over to the initial raiser, who continues for $175. We got 3 cards over the 4. Even if you happen to have pocket 4s or Jack 4, we can still improve on a king, 10, or 5. With that being the case, I'm going to put in the check raise here. With the flush draw being on board, we can find some semi-bluffs with our flush draws, especially if we block full houses as well. So raising with trips seems pretty good here. I go ahead and bump this up to $575. MSK thinks about it for a bit and continues with a call. Off to a turn card, which is a pretty favorable one. It's the Jack of Diamonds. That's quads, that's the nuts. It's a little unclear what the best line is for me. I'm not exactly sure. Should we just keep our foot on the gas? If we do that, we fold out all of the flush draws. We could definitely get value from pocket aces, maybe some other boats. I decided to check it though, hoping to induce some betting, and that is what happens as MSK puts out a small bet on the turn. I guess this is the downside of taking this line. Putting in the double check raise looks super strong, and if we check call here, we allow him to just get to showdown kind of on the cheap side. I do think he'll find some wagering on the river, the times when he has pocket aces. And if he does have a flush draw, well, we just shut those out with another check raise here. So I continue with the call, see what happens on the river, and we see the king of clubs come in. Check it over to my opponent, obviously hoping to see some more betting, but that is not what happens as he checks back very quickly. We shut on the quads, not a massive pot, but hey, quads, always fun, isn't it? Next hand, number 14. Did I mention that there's a lot of hands that have a lot of action when you play Pot Limit Omaha? Just cruising right along here, still in the early going though. $50 straddle is on, and action folds to Trey, who comes in for the $200 raise out of the cutoff spot. No other participants until it gets around to me in that $50 straddle, looking down at ace, queen, 10, 5. No suits, but we close the action. Connectivity up top and bottom. Let's make the call. Heads up to ace, king, 5, 2 hearts. Very good flop for the initial raiser. Not the worst flop for us, though. We got top and bottom, plus a gut shot. So when Trey continues for a $300 C-bet, I'm going nowhere. I make the call. Turn 3 of diamonds. Doesn't change too much, although potential wheel available. Check it over to Trey, who doesn't stop firing. This time for $900. Have to take into consideration our cards, our exact cards and suits and everything in this hand. Aces and 5s, not a bad hand, but we've got a queen and we've got a 10 of hearts, so that makes it a little bit less likely that Trey is blasting away here with a wrap or a flush draw or some combo of the 2. If he's got a really good hand like top set or second set or top 2 pair, it's tough to know what we can improve with aside from an offsuit jack. Folding sucks, never fun and never win when you fold, but decide to show some restraint in this hand. Give Trey some respect here. Decide to let my 2 pair go in this spot, blocking some of those draws, and turns out to be a good decision here because he's got king, king, 10, 9 for second set. Has us crushed here. Nice hand, Trey. Hand number 16 now. We are not missing too many hands before something happens. In this one, Rolex Mike coming in for the raise out of the hijack spot up to $150. Esther makes the call in the cutoff spot, and it's over to us. In the big blind, looking down at double suited aces. Living the dream here. Get a 3-bet here, of course. Make it $700 to go here. Initial raiser, Rolex Mike makes the call. Over to Esther now. Decides she's got something good enough to stick all of her chips into the middle with. She jams for just about $1,700, and that is enough to reopen the betting. We do have the option to re-raise, and that's what we're going to do here. We go ahead and jam it in with our aces, and Rolex Mike, not in a folding mood, sticks it in as well. Esther has a very pretty hand here. Ace, king, queen, jack with a suit. Unfortunate for her to run into the aces that also has a king in hand. Rolex Mike has a double suited hand, not exactly super connected, but double suited. Always a chance. 3 poker players getting all the money in. We're going to see 2 boards.
You bet queen on that
Glass
jack.
of wine.
Yeah, I got tired of these.
He's hoping black cards come.
For sure.
Twice.
2 times.
Twice, yeah. I say when you own the place, they let you put
2 full boards. Let's see who comes out on top here. The betting is done. Rainbow board here. Andrew looking good with his aces.
nothing there.
I'm dead.
And he's going to win the first one.
I'm burning out.
It is hard for one pair to
Wow.
have 2 hands
I was
drawing
dead.
dead on
That's
the
crazy.
tens. But
It was like no.
Andrew will win the first board.
That was only one heart.
good grief. Red turn, red river too.
Couple diamonds for Esther. There's a set now for Andrew. The last ace in the deck.
All right. of the zone.
And Andrew Neeme, scoop for the Vlogfather, drinking the Camus. Take a sip.
Life is feeling pretty good at the moment. Once again, scooping 2 boards versus 2 players, drinking out of a bottle of Camus bought by T1000. Living the dream in the live stream studio at the Lodge. All right, finally we get to jump ahead a little bit. No major confrontations until hand number 27 here. With the $50 straddle on, we look down at ace, queen, queen, 9, nut clubs in the cutoff spot. That's a pretty strong one. We go ahead and raise this up to $200. Rolex Mike feels like he's got a strong one as well. Goes ahead and puts in the 3-bet out of the third blind up to $650. Esther in the $50 straddle. She makes the cold call. Bunch of action pre-flop in this hand. Could definitely consider putting in a 4-bet here, but just decide to make the call, head to the flop, see what happens. Flop comes down ace 6-6 with 2 hearts. Obviously a great hand for the pre-flop 3-better. That's Rolex Mike. He decides to check it. Esther checks it. We've got aces and 6s with a queen kicker in this spot. Somebody could have a 6. Rolex Mike could be trapping with pocket aces full. Quads are possible. I decide to check this one back, see what happens on the turn. That turn is a total brick, and Mike checks it again. Esther also checks, and now I'm just going to go ahead and go for some value here. Charge flush draws, charge straight draws. No free equity for someone to hit kings full or something like that. I fire out for $600. Interesting news from Mike. He goes ahead and now check raises here on the turn. Sticks it all in, essentially, and Esther gets out of the way. This is a pretty weird spot. We put a bunch of money in, and he doesn't have that much in his stack. You don't see too often when players will set the trap twice with pocket aces full, checking on flop and turn. We also have a blocker to that hand, so I'm just going to go with it, and if he's got it, he's got it. Obviously not loving the spot here, but it's just not enough behind. Go ahead, stick the money in. Say, I guess he just gets it if he's got it, and indeed he does got it. Ace, ace, king, 8. That's aces full, and that means we are drawing dead. So you can't win them all. That's a nice hand for Mike. Once we bet that $600, maybe there's some chance of getting away from it, but nah, not really. Hand number 30 now sees Rolex Mike coming in for the raise off of the button. We look down at ace, queen, jack 9 double suited. That is a pretty one. That is 3-bettable. Bump this up to $500 out of the straddle spot. Rolex Mike agrees to the price. Let's go. Heads up to a flop. Queen, queen, 5, 2 hearts. We're hitting a lot of flops, you guys. That's trips, best kicker. We're c-betting it. I would c-bet a lot of these high card trips boards, somewhere around a quarter to a third. Fire out here on this one. Rolex Mike not folding, which we don't mind one bit. He makes the call. We're off to a turn card, which is an offsuit jack. That's the nuts for us. Queens full of jacks. Love to see it. We're going to keep our foot on the gas here. Don't need to go too big. Happy to entice draws to come along, as well as worse queens. The only bad card for us now is going to be a king. Happy to keep pretty much his full range in here. Fire out on the turn for not too big of a bet. And pretty good news, we see Mike grabbing some chips, and he makes the call once again. Off to a river card, which once again is pretty damn favorable. The queen of clubs. Guys, that's quads for the second time in 30 hands for us. Obviously, we're going for value here. If I had some sort of an air ball with an ace in my hand and I wanted to represent queens full of aces, I would fire out on this river. We're going to have the strongest hands, having been the 3-better pre-flop and Mike not raising on the flop or the turn. So I think it makes sense to fire out here on the river and not look to trap or check raise or anything weird like that. Decided a wager size of $1,200. And we love to see it as Mike starts assembling some chips in front of him, thinking things over before deciding to give it up. He just goes ahead and folds, and as we can see, he actually had a flush draw on the flop and turn and open-ender on the turn. We weren't wagering very large, so I don't blame him for continuing on either of those streets. Bricks out on the river, considers doing something. Obviously, we would have loved to see that, but making quads, can't complain. Hand number 39 here, Trey coming in for the raise out of the hijack position. Esther makes the call on the button. T1000 makes the call in the small blind, and it's over to us in the third blind, looking down at double suited kings. King, king, 5, deuce, spades, and diamonds. Kings are pretty good. Double suited is pretty great. Let's go ahead and put in the 3-bet. I toss out $1,050. That's going to clear out the initial raiser Trey. He gets out of the way. Esther also decides that is too much for her holdings. She gets out of the way as well. But T1000, he doesn't give up too easy. He likes to play some hands. He goes ahead and makes the call. So the two of us going heads up to a flop that comes down all diamonds. Ace high board, all diamonds. That means we've got the nuts. T1000 checking it over to me. If I happen to have
pocket kings with just the king of diamonds, and without the flush, I would still start wagering here, doing so as a bluff. But when we've got the nuts here, obviously betting for value. I fire out for a small sizing of $450, and we're happy to see that T1000 not releasing. He goes ahead and makes the call. Off to a turn card, which comes down the king of hearts. So now we have a set and can actually improve to a full house. We're basically fearing nothing now. There is some straight flush draws possible. We could lose to aces full of kings on a rivered ace, maybe, but we've got the world here. Same plan as when we were betting on the flop. If we just had the naked king of diamonds, we're going to go ahead and fire as a bluff, ramping it up significantly now. And when we have the flush, obviously that's for value. So I decided to bet $1,500. And T1000, after thinking about it for a little while, continues once again. So it's pretty clear that he's got himself a flush as well. He probably wouldn't continue with just a set of 8s or 7s on this board because he could very easily be up against a set of aces or a set of kings, not to mention flushes. So that's likely what's going on in this hand. The two of us head off to a river, which pairs the board, the 8 of spades. Now when T1000 checks it over to us, we just have to decide how much we want to wager. It's a decision between trying to go for value versus those presumed flushes, or do we want to go polarized here, making our hand look a little bit more bluffy because we're the only ones that can really have aces full here. Remember, we 3-bet pre-flop and he called twice pre-flop. So if I'm going to turn my hand into a bluff here, say I have ace king with the king of diamonds, blocking the top full houses and those nut flushes, I'm going to want to apply the maximum pressure. And if that's true, then I probably want to go for maximum value during the times that I have the nuts or the virtual nuts. T1000 is also good enough to know that I'm really the only one who can have aces full here and that I could try and represent that type of a hand. So it's a little bit of a leveling war here. And essentially, I'm hoping that he has an ace in his hand, that he's blocking aces full, and that he can talk himself into a call with a worse flush. I pot it here, bet the maximum, $6,475, and we send T1000 into the tank, hoping for a call so we could win a massive one.
If it wasn't a board pair, going to take a sip of that Camus, and he's going to realize he never was in this pot. Never. So Sarah Grodick, his mother, just chimed in and says, ouch, in chat. Going to take another drink. This time it's water. He went from wine to water. You can get away from this, T1000. The board is paired. In the blender he is.
At this point,
60 what?
first time all day, I'm not the one on the river going, oh,
T1000 normally doesn't take this long.
with the rabbit hole.
Usually very quick to act.
This is close.
YouTube algorithm, and then you become radicalized and really ruins your pot limit again.
This is close.
If he makes the call, it's the largest part of the day, by far.
I wish I could request for just one card to be revealed, but I want to request what the card
Yeah, do you want to show one card? Do you want to reveal two cards?
say yes and show the exact card I'm thinking about.
Do you want to reveal 3 cards?
Great.
With a salt.
I don't think we're approaching the delay yet, but we're getting close.
Bellagio and everyone at the Bellagio would have 14 different.
This is
Wants
so
to
painful.
fold.
Good bet. Yeah, good bet.
Makes the fold.
If that's a bluff, I highly suggest.
You got it. Good fold. Good fold. Good fold.
I flop the flush.
Eventually and unfortunately, T1000 does make the correct fold. And as we can see, he actually did have an ace in his hand, which means he's blocking aces full. But he correctly deduces that pocket kings full of 8s that either flopped the nut flush or just had the king of diamonds, and river to boat was a likely holding for me as well. He's a good player, that T1000. He knows his way around a pot limit Omaha table, that is for sure. And unfortunately, even though we've coolered him a handful of times on these streams, it seems like I've never been able to win the maximum versus this guy. Tough to terminate the Terminator. Hand number 54 here on the show, we see Rolex Mike coming in for the raise up to $350 on the button. He's coming off of a short stack here. We look down at Queen Jack 10-9, single suited. That's pretty good. We're under the gun spot here in the straddle. Maybe we could 3-bet, but there's no fold equity, so maybe we'll just call and see a flop, and that's what I decide on. MSK is behind me. He chucks in the call as well. So 3 players heading to a flop that comes down Ace Queen 9 with 2 hearts. That's 2 pairs for us plus an open ender. That's pretty good. We check it over to the initial raiser, who basically goes all in. He's got a smidge left behind. We're at least calling, and I'm considering raising, but I think calling is pretty reasonable here. I don't know if I want to raise here and have MSK put in another raise behind me, because we would probably have to fold away a bunch of equity, or at least be in a very tricky spot. So I make the call, and MSK does call behind me. Turn looks pretty bricky on an offsuit 6. We check over to the short stack, who sticks in his last $75. Again, kind of a weird spot. Could raise, or we could just flat call this tiny bet. I don't like the 2 hearts out there, but when MSK does not raise on the flop, it feels like we have the best hand a lot of the time. Not exactly too sure. I just tossed in the call, a little unsure what to do here. And we get interesting news when MSK does now take it upon himself to put in a big raise. Raises up to $27.50. And it's pretty awkward here. 2 pair plus open ender, but there's better 2 pairs available. There's sets. And as I mentioned, there's that flush draw out there. So I don't know. I just decided to fold, hoping it's not a bad one. And it turns out it's not. That 6 turns out to be a very bad card for us, because both of these opponents have the same hand, Ace Jack 10-6. Somehow they find a 6 to turn a better 2 pair. We were in pretty good shape there until that card. But nothing really changes, because we essentially called all of the short stacks stack, and we don't lose any more money versus MSK in this hand. So it's as if we went all in versus the short stack, and he gets the full double up versus myself. We would not have delivered the best hand, so in the end, it didn't matter too much which option we went with on previous streets. Hand number 64 of the stream. Esther comes in for the limp on the cutoff spot. I got myself the Jack 8-8 deuce, 2 diamonds. I limp in as well. MSK putting in the raise. $275 to go. Dallas out of the way. Esther, she's going to make the call. And why not? So let's take a look at a little flop ski, shall we? Closing the action, I make the call with my Jack 8-8 deuce, and we go 3 ways to a flop. That comes down Ace 8-7, 2 hearts. It's middle set for us. It's kind of mostly good news. Bad news is 2 hearts out there. We don't have a flush draw. Could possibly be up against pocket aces from the pre-flop raiser. So when I check to MSK and he puts out a C-bet, Esther thinks about it and then gets out of the way. We're not going to raise this. We don't have any backdoor stuff going on here, really. Aside from a straight draw, that's not all that much to be proud of. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in the call and see what happens on the turn. And what happens on the turn is that we make quads yet again. The 3rd time making quads in 64 hands. Pot Limit Omaha, you guys. Learn it, love it, make quads a billion times. We're going to stay in flow. Check to the initial raiser. That's C-better. Hope he continues, obviously, and continue. He does. He fires out another bet, this time for $600. We are praying that he's got aces full now. Not going to check raise here. Keep all the draws in there. And if he does have that monster hand, we're going to get a lot from that hand anyway. So I go ahead, make the call, and we head to a river card, which is an offsuit 5. Check it over to MSK, hoping he's got the goods this time, or at least fires out with a bluff here on the river. We'll take it either way. But unfortunately, he announces that he has ace-king, checking it back. And that is a good check back, because we got quads. Quads are good. That's a good hand, quads. Trust me, I should know. I've had it 3 times. Hand number 71 of today's production. We are heading into another $50 straddle hand. We see Trey coming in for the raise up to $200 out of the hijack spot. Mike makes the call on the cutoff. Kenny tosses it in the big blind, and it's over to us with the Ace Queen 10-6 nut diamonds. Happily make the call in the 3rd blind, and we've got ourselves a 4-way pot heading to the flop. That flop comes down Queen 10-7 rainbow, 1 diamond, backdoor flush draw for us. Kenny checks it. Typically on this kind of a board, I would just check to the raiser. Just going to try and do something a little bit different here. It's such a dynamic board. Tons of hands to charge. Lots of turn cards that are going to muddy the waters. Honestly, not even sure if that's the best thought process, but I bet $600. We shed 2 players, but Rolex Mike is in there making the call. Turn is a deuce diamonds. That seems pretty great to me, because we pick up the nut flush draw and we still have top 2 pair. So if we didn't face any raises on this flop, seems like chances are we have the best hand. Maybe a set of 7s lurks.
but feeling very good about my hand now. Top 2 plus nut flush draw. I bet the maximum, bet the pot for 1875. Rolex Mike thinks about it for a little bit, checks his cards and his stack size before deciding. He's going to go with it, sticks his money in there. It's around $3,000. Of course, we make the call, and we see that we are up against a wrap plus a flush draw. That flush draw, no good, of course. We're dominating diamonds, but he's got himself such a big straight draw. 6, 8, 9, Jack, King. All sorts of good cards out there for him in order to make a straight. Very unfortunate for him that he's dominated with that flush draw. We're going to run it twice, as has been the norm for the most of this stream. First river comes down the 7 of diamonds, and that one is good for us, making a flush. Off to the second river now, which is not a diamond, but it surprisingly does not complete Mike's straight draw in that offsuit 5. So many cards he could have hit to make a straight, but the 5 is not one of them. And our run good continues in this game, scooping this pot, running it twice.
What could be better? Part of the ownership team here at the lodge, drinking Camus and dragging pot after pot after pot. Life is good for Mr. Andrew Neeme.
I don't know if you guys have ever made quads 3 times in one single poker session, but if not, I strongly recommend it, A, for the fun factor, and B, for a profit motive. We get into this 25, 50, 100 pot limit Omaha game at the Lodge in Austin, Texas for $3,000, and we do not need to add on, which is always a good sign. In this case, we cash out for $15,975. That is a profit of $12,975. Always fun to run good in a larger than average pot limit Omaha game. That's putting it lightly. Love to see this result. If you are still watching the video at this point and you want to see more pot limit Omaha videos, feel free to let me know in the comments. The only real feedback I get mainly is from YouTube telling me how poorly this video is going to perform. But anyway, would love it if you would leave a comment saying as such if that's true. Trying to play some bigger stakes, you guys. Expansion always in all ways. That is a quote from some real estate guy in some cheesy reality show. All right, guys, cheers. See you at the next one.